Shalom, shalom, everyone. This is Ayana. I am the facilitator for the YHUHderek channel, and I want to welcome you and thank you. Today, we are going to talk about a third witness for the third month, and we are going to be talking about Thruayah and Yum Kapar, but more specifically, Yum Kapar. All right. But first, as always, I would like to thank these people for their recent donations to the YHUHderek channel. As you know, we do use your donations to help us with research material, to purchase media for use, books, all types of things. Also equipment to make videos or software or anything like that. So thank you very much to these people. If you would like to donate to the YHUHderek channel, we have two avenues with which to do that. The first one is PayPal, and you would use our email address, which is YHUHderek@mail.com. And then the second avenue is CashApp, and you can do $YHUHderek. In addition, we do have a digital download a store at shoply.com. And speaking of that, I just wanted everyone to know again that the calendar for next year is complete. YHUH's calendar for the Gregorian years 2024 and 2025 is available now. We have all new updated information. I've added more scripture verses to each month. All 10 feasts are included. And it does come with a new legend in the back. So if you just go to shoply.com, next year's calendar is $77.99 download at shoply.com. All right. Sorry about that. So before I get started, I do want to say to please excuse if I sound a little nasally. I'm having an allergy attack, so I may have to pause the video every now and again. So please forgive me for that. So in reviewing the first video, Origin of the Fall Feasts, when did they occur? We talked about the first witness, and that was found in Exodus chapter 19, where YHUH met Yasharal on Mount Sinai, and he made a covenant with them. Then the trumpets blew before YHUH spoke to Masha and with all Yasharal present, which accounts for the Feast of Trumpets or Thruayah. You can find that in Exodus 19 or Shemuth 19:16 and verse 19. Then we got into what was the origin of Yum Kapar, which is the Day of Atonement, and it came out of the idolatry that Yasharal committed with the golden calf, and you can find that in Shemuth 32 verses 1 through 6. And then we talked about how Masha, once they committed that, YHUH made them take off all of their fine jewelry. He made them stay in their tents, which is something that has to be done during Yum Kapar. And Masha, Moses, had to make an atonement for Yasharal. And you can find that in Shemuth 32:30 and 33:12 through 17. That was the first witness that we mentioned in this original video. The second witness, which was the confirmation witness, was in the kingdom, the split kingdom of Yehuda, right? And this is where King Asa, he gathers Yasharal in the third month, and they do a covenant with YHUH. They renew the same covenant with YHUH. You can find that in 1 Chronicles 15 verses 10 and 12. Then they swore a covenant, and then they gave a great shout, and that great shout is the word Thruayah. which is the same thing as the trumpets blowing, right? You can find that in 2 Chronicles 15:14. And then they actually rejoiced in their oath, the covenant oath that they made to Yahuwah. And that word oath in this account is the word Shabu'eh. So the reason why that's significant, because the feast of Shabu'eh is in the 3rd month, as well as Thruayah, as well as Yum Kapar, right? And we talked about that. So all of that aligns with the 3rd month, because the original Thruayah, as I just mentioned, mentions the loud trumpet blowing before Yahuwah speaks to Masha and Yasharal, right? And it was stipulated as a memorial blowing of the trumpets. That's what Yahuwah said, and you can find that in YHUH 23 verses 24 and 25. All of this also aligns in the 3rd month, because again, they did a shout through this verse again, and then also because of the word for shabu, the word for swear, shabu'eh, which is also in the 3rd month. In the 3rd month, it's called Shalash. And if you will remember, because I want to remind you now that shabu'eh, the root word to shabu'eh is shabeh, right? Shabeh. That is Shan Bath Ayan, or Shin Bet Ayin. Okay. And the original meaning of that word is to swear, is to witness, and is to satisfy. Right? The word 7 is a derivative of shabeh. All right. It's like shablisi or something like that, with all the conjugations of the yods and everything in there. But that is a second derivative of the word. The original meaning of the word is to swear, is to witness, and to satisfy. So please keep that in mind. All right, so the original Yom Kapar, which came out of the golden calf incident, aligns with what is said in Shemuth 30:16, where Yahuwah demands that a half shekel or half shekel is a memorial ransom. And the reason why that aligns is because if you recall the golden calf incident, the people of Yasharal gave their gold jewelry to give to Arun to make the golden calf. So Yahuwah said, okay, if you can get a gold to a false idol, you're going to give it to me. You're going to give a half shekel. It's a ransom. And remember that Yom Kapar is an atonement for our souls. So it is a very serious, very solemn feast. All right. So this is the calendar. I just wanted to rehash what was from the first video, origin of the fall feast. And here, this is the month of Shalash. Now, this is last year's calendar. I'll show this year's calendar in a few minutes, but here is it. And we see that at the beginning of Shemuth chapter 19, Exodus 19, Yahuwah is already on Mount Sinai when Yasharal gets to Sinai on the first day of the 3rd month. And Yahuwah tells Masha to prepare Yasharal to cleanse themselves. He tells Yasharal to wash themselves, and tells Masha to sanctify them for the first 2 days, and that he would meet them on the 3rd day. Right? So on the 3rd day, yes, on the Shabbat, Yahuwah meets them and the trumpets blow, and he talks to Masha with Yasharal being there. And then the covenant is made, right? And Yasharal, gives consent. Yes, all that you say we will do. Those are exact quotes from scripture. And then if you look, I want to say Shemot chapter 32. I can't remember the particular verse, but it says that Yahuwah had stayed up on Mount Sinai for 7 days, right? So he first appears here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, after Masha goes up to Mount Sinai to actually get the tablets for the 10 Commandments, the children of Yasharal, they say, hey, he's been gone for a while. We need you to take this jewelry and make a calf, which happens here. And if you recall, the verses for Yom Kapar, Yahuwah says on the evening of the 9th day to the evening of the 10th day is Yom Kapar, right? So Aaron actually he crafts the golden calf on the first day, but they do wild sexual orgies and they celebrate the false idol of the golden calf on the morning of the 10th day. And that is where Yom Kapar comes in at, right? But this is also the day that Yahuwah gives Masha the tablets, the 10 Commandments. And then he tells Masha to go back down because they are worshiping the idol and they're saying that the golden calf is the one that freed them from Mitzrayim, Egypt, right? So at the same time this is going on, Yahuwah has fulfilled his oath to to Abram, and Yasharal had committed their oath to Yahuwah, saying that they would do what he said that they would do, and Yahuwah gives Masha the commandments of his laws that is supposed to be following on Shabbat A. All right, so that makes sense. And then Masha comes down, he grinds up the golden calf, he makes them drink it. Him and the Levites, they kill 3,000 of their idol worshiping brethren. And then he says, hey, Yahuwah says, remove the jewelry from them, for I consume them all. And then he makes them standing tents, and Masha has to go back up to Sinai to complete the atonement. All right. So, and I mentioned all this, as you can see here, all of this was in the first video. So now, we've got all that summation. You can always go back and look at the first video for a complete refresher. Now we have a third witness, and it has to do with King Shalamah or Solomon. And we're going to look at two sets of verses. The first one is in 1 Kings 8, chapters 8 and 9. And then the second one is 2 Chronicles chapters 5 through 7. We'll pare down because that's a lot of verses. So we'll start with the first king, and we're just going to read these two verses. You can read all of chapter 8 and 9, but for the purpose of this video, we're just going to cover these two verses. So 1 Kings 8, 65 and 66. At that time, Shalamah, which is Solomon, held a feast, and all of Yasharal with him. A great congregation from the entering in of Kamath, which is in Syria, to the river of the Egypt, which is the Yar River, which is now called the Nile. The Mitzrayim called it Yar. The Arabics and the Greeks call it Nile. Okay. Before Yahuwah Alayam, 7 days and 7 days, 14 days. And on the 8th day, he sent the people away, and they baruched the king and went to their tents joyful and glad of heart for all the goodness Yahuwah had done for David, his servant, and for Yasharal, his people. So, why does it say 14 days? But then it says Shalamah released them on the 8th day. And we'll get into that. This is the actual Yar River. It's now called the Nile River. It's the actual tributary, one of the tributary rivers that go into the Great Nile River that runs through Egypt. The other one being the Blue Nile River, but this is a picture of the White Nile. All right, so the second set of verses from Second Chronicles 5:3, right? I have 7 here. That's wrong. It should be 5:3. And 7, chapter 7, 8 through 10. Wherefore all the men of Yasharal assembled themselves unto the king in the feast which was in the 7th month. Oops, sorry. And then to chapter 7. Also at the same time, Shalamah kept the feast 7 days, and all of Yasharal with him, a very great congregation, from the entering of Kamath unto the river of Egypt. And in the 8th day they made an assembly, for they kept the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. And on the 23rd day of the 7th month, he, Shalamah, sent the people away into their tents, glad and merry in heart, for the goodness that YHUH had showed to Daud and to Shalamah and to Yasharal his people. So this confirms what was said in the 1 Kings chapter 8 verse. This is a little bit more specific, right? Because it says on the 23rd day of the 7th month, Shalamah released Yasharal to go away into their tents. So, sorry. Now we're going to answer. I'm going to go back. Why does it say 14 days, but King Shalamah released them on the 8th day? And the answer is this. First of all, the word dedication is the word Kanaka, or as people know it today, Hanukkah. The word has a kath in it, not a hey, but it's Kanaka is the original word. And you can find that, and it comes from this verse, which is here, verse 9, the word dedication. So you can find it in H25, 97, and 98. And its definition is to make narrow, to instruct, to initiate, or dedicate. And that dedicate is what is referred to in the verse. Kanaka or Kanaka. Kanak is the root word. All right. It is also what you know as Enoch. Enoch's real name is Kanuk. That's his real name, meaning dedicated to YHUH. Enoch's real name is Kanuk, and you can find that in these Strong's numbers right here. So the answer to why it says they feasted 14 days and Shalamah released them on the 8th day is this. The only feast that is in the 7th month is Succoth. Yum Kapar is not a feast. You're supposed to fast for those 24 hours. Thruayah, it is a Shabbat. You can't eat that day, but you can't do any work, right? But the feast is Succoth. And Succoth is an 8-day feast, which was what it was meant by 7 and 7 in 1 Kings 8:65. The second 7 days of was Succoth, right? Because it said 7 days and 7 days equaling 14 days. That's what it said in 1 Kings, right? So the second set of 7 days was the Feast of Succoth. And Shalamah released Yasharal after that. Now, going to the 2 Chronicles 7 verse, right? It was more specific. It said on the 23rd day of the 7th month, which is after Succoth, Shalamah released them, right? This is significant to Thruayah and Yum Kapar being in the third month, and I'm about to show you why. So this is the 7th month of Yathan, and this is part of YHUH's calendar for this year. We actually just left that month. 2 days ago was the first month, so we're in the 8th month technically now. But a couple of days ago, we were still in the 7th month, right? About 3 days ago. So here is Sukkot, here's Yom Kippur. So going by what was said, Shalamah released Yasharal on the 23rd day of the 7th month. That's what it said, right? So it says that they celebrated the dedication of the temple, because that's what both verses are talking about, if I failed to mention that. Shalamah built YHUH, the first original temple, Hayakal. Hayakal is the word in YHUH. And they celebrated for 14 days. So if we count backwards from when Shalamah released them, which is the day after Sukkot, we will find that 14 days includes Yom Kapar. Now, how did that happen? How were they able to celebrate the dedication of the temple during a time that is stipulated that we are to be sorrowful, we are supposed to have be in our homes, our tents, and it's an atonement for our souls? How are we supposed to be celebrating that? All right. Right? This is what's supposed to happen here. So Shalamah celebrated the dedication of the temple. It started on Yom Kippur and it ended on the last day of Sukkot, which was a Shabbat, right? Shabbat. These two are Shabbats. Here's a Shabbat. Here's two more Shabbats, and then the last Shabbat, and then they were released. 14 days. To look at it again, we've got a new set. So it said that Shalamah dedicated the altar for 7 days, right? There was a dedication of the altar of burnt offerings when he celebrated the temple. That was the first 7 days, and then the second 7 days was Sukkot, and then after that, that is when Shalamah released Yasharal. That's what D of A is, dedication of the altar. So let's go back to make sure. I'm going to go back. I didn't include it. I'm sorry. I thought I included that verse that says that Shalamah, the altar, the dedication of the altar was 7 days, and then Sukkot was 7 days. I forgot to add that. I apologize. But that was my big question. So what I did was I looked further in the rest of what's the Old Testament, right? And I wanted to know if Yom Kippur was celebrated anytime after the account of King Shalamah dedicating the temple. And I am so sorry. I didn't mean to go through that again. All right. So, Yasharal, oh, here's the verse right here. Yasharal started celebrating the dedication of the altar on the first day of Yum Kapar. On Yum Kapar, we are supposed to stay in our homes, fast, and afflict our souls because our souls are dependent on atoning for sin, right? The word shebeh, and I talked about that before we started talking about the verses, which is 7, but it originally means to swear, to witness, and to satisfy. That is the root word of shabueh. In the origin of the Fall Feast video, we talked about the 7th month being the month of swearing. And we talked about that because YHUH says, okay, in the 7th month on the first day, you should have a memorial blowing of trumpets. On the evening of the 9th day until in the 7th month, at the evening of the 9th day until the evening of the 10th day is Yum Kapar, and that is a memorial where you atone for your souls, and you're supposed to give a memorial ransom of a half shekel to YHUH during that time, right? And then it says on the 15th day through the 22nd day, for 8 days, you're supposed to celebrate Sukkot. You're supposed to be in your tents or your booths, and you are commanded to celebrate because YHUH has baruched you all year round, all of the year, and you are supposed to celebrate for all of the barakah that YHUH gives to you. I'm just giving a short, that's not the verses word for word, but that's what it says. All right. So, 7th month of swearing. The month of swearing is the 3rd month of Shalash because YHUH satisfied the oath that he gave to Abraham, and Yasharal gave their oath to YHUH to follow his commandments and to be his people. Also, the 7th month on YHUH's calendar isn't even called Shebeh, it's called Ayathan, right? Ayathan, and you can find it here in the Strong's number, means to be strong or to be mighty. The reason why this month is called that is because in the 7th month, which is considered, I want to say winter, but it would be more like, it would be winter, right? The brook or the stream that runs along Jerusalem, it does not freeze over. It stays running all year round. And that's why it's called a Yathan. And it's most likely either the Gihon or the Kidron Brook, right? And it continues to flow in the winters. That's why the 7th month is called a Yathan and not Shebeh. So, how can Yasharal bypass Yum Kapar knowing how serious it is to YHUH? And this is what I am putting to you, is that because Yum Kapar is not in the 7th month, Yum Kapar is in the month of swearing. And if you go back, because Sukkot also happened in the 3rd month, right? YHUH made them stay in their tents, although it was not a moment of rejoicing, but they were in their tents, right? But as it says in Zechariah 45:25, that Sukkot will actually be in the seventh month. That is prophetic, right? Because that talks about YHUH gives Ezekiel all the measurements of the city for the Levites and all the measurements and the rest of the land for Yasharal. He talks about the prince coming in, being Yahusha, the prince coming in and giving sacrifices. If you go through that whole chapter, Ezekiel 45, it'll tell you all this. But at the very end, verse 25, it says, and the prince will celebrate the Succoth. And this is future. So Succoth is in the 7th month, but Thruayah and Yum Kapar is in the 3rd month. Just one moment. Just one moment. All right, thank you. All right, so if that is not enough, then I have more supportive evidence. So I went to look at the rest of what's called the Old Testament to see if Yum Kapar was being celebrated, and it is not. So, lastly, there is no mention of Yum Kapar actually being celebrated in the 7th month in the rest of the Old Testament. In both of the books of Azara and Nakamyah, the only feast that all of Yasharal participate in is Thruayah and Succoth. Yum Kapar is not mentioned, and you can find that in these verses right here. So this is the end of the video. I would really like to know what you think of this third witness, as well as the first and second witness, that Yum Kapar and Thruayah is in the 3rd month. Thank you so much for watching the entire video, and please leave a comment, and thank you. Shalom, everyone.